Just shorten the box and then it'll be good.
Well, good morning all, and I'll like to open the March meeting of the Whangamata Community Board and start with calling for apologies. Do we have any apologies? Looks like no, we have everybody here. So we'll move to item 2, public forum. So currently we have 3 speakers identified. We'll just wait for Jennifer to bring them in.
Does anyone want the econ?
What's that?
Do you want the econ?
Just a wee bit.
While we wait for the first speaker.
Now we do have, we can make room, we've got a few extra chairs there.
I'm not sure how many copies I've got. Don't panic about this because you don't have to read screens.
Don't trip over Gail.
No.
Yeah, you can use me.
Give her a hand up.
It's so good, I'm jumping over things.
So, minutes, and you can have one each. There you go.
Well, welcome, Gail.
Thank you.
And you know the format, so the format.
I do. I've been here before. Thank you. My name is Gail Williamson, and I'm representing the pickleball group in Whangamata, and I have been here before, but I'm back because I think there was some issues that weren't quite right with the last time. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the $600 that the community board granted us. This takes us up to the 19th of April because TCDC backdated it to the beginning of February while everything was still under question. So if you haven't, in August 2020, I liaised with Bill Cooksley, who was the Thames-Coromandel District Coordinator. The verbal arrangement was the first 4 weeks at no charge, and then $2 a person, and this is for the use of the Memorial Hall. Now, on that basis, the first page will show you the invoice that we received for the pickleball equipment, which we paid. If we were under any impression whatsoever that we were going to be charged $50 per go, we would not have purchased that gear because it would not have been sustainable. The second, then we set a date for the beginning of our pickleball thing on the 12th of October. On the second page, we'll show you that on the 3rd of September, I was sent some forms to fill out, and as the pink highlighted area shows, I questioned, before I fill out this form, can we confirm costs? Bill said you would give us the first 4 weeks free and then $2 per person.
It actually says Bill said you may give us.
Okay, fine. Is that how it's going to be? In blue highlight, the answer is yes, that is correct. On the 23rd of October, I wrote to the community board, which is page 3, which you've all seen before, asking if the community board could recommend that we could use the hall for no charge. That letter didn't come to the community board. It was passed on to TCDC. And on the 16th of February, I did the pickleball presentation to the community board. After that meeting, I discovered page 4, the memo, when I was looking for the minutes of that meeting. Now, this memo had not been seen by the pickleball group. So it was written without reference to us whatsoever. I hadn't seen it before the meeting, and that's where I think there was some confusion. Because this says that we're an application for discretionary fund. We weren't applying for funding, we were applying for TCDC to honour their $2 per person agreement. We were certainly grateful for the trial of the marking tape, which will happen after Easter, which will be just before the 19th of April, when TCDC tell us that our funding runs out. Taping at the moment costs us about just over $6 a week to put the tape down on the floor and then pull it all up again. And that is on page 5. As the rumours were going around that pickleball was not continuing, on Facebook, which is page 6, I put a comment that TCDC reneged on an agreement we had, but the community board has helped us out by covering the cost of the hall for 3 months. So I gave a brickbat to the TCDC and a well done to the community board. Then I received an acknowledgement from TCDC, and I've outlined that in blue. Your comments on social media last night have been read and will be taken into consideration if you apply for assistance in future. I thought that was rather threatening. I also sent an email to the... Am I going for time, Keith?
You've got about a minute.
I also sent an email to the Chief Executive of TCDC asking him if he could help us get a resolution to this problem, and he responded and said he's done some research and he would recommend that we continue with Ken Coolum as the Chair of the Community Board and Eileen Hopping as the Area Manager to progress your group's aspirations. The Community Board really are the final decision makers for local halls in Whangamata. So my appeal once again is that the Community Board could recommend or ask TCDC if we can continue on the original agreement that we had with TCDC of $2 per person. We collect $2 off everyone. I'm very happy to pass that on to TCDC. Nothing would be even better because that will give us a little bit of money to keep on with the equipment. That's me. Any questions?
Questions?
Gail, I'm just a bit confused with you saying that you have only till April with the $600.
Yeah, because the Community Board gave us $600.
Yeah.
As I communicated with Eileen Hopping, is that you? Yeah. I communicated with her saying that instead of me getting the money and then paying it back, could she just put it over to the Memorial Hall Fund? And I said that would take us up to, it was a date in May, and she came back and said, yes, but that takes you up to the 17th of April because they backdated it while all this was under question.
But in our sort of resolutions, we put that trial for 3 months was not to begin till after Easter.
That's the tape.
No.
Yes, it was the tape.
That was
the tape marking, which would be
fabulous. I thought it was the whole.
No.
What was the point? Because we talked about
we're not discussing it, Kay. You're just asking the clarification.
But that's what I'm confused.
Yeah, no, that's the tape. Yeah.
How many people are you getting?
We're actually reasonably steady, and it's not a big lot of people because we can't accommodate them. We've only got 2 courts, so we can play 8 people at one time. But we are steadily getting about a dozen people each time, and we are getting the odd new one coming in, which is great because they're having a go. So we're getting people coming in, having a look. They either like it or they don't. We got a couple came in recently and they love it, but now they're away for 6 weeks touring around in their motorbed. So, this is, and that's what we're there for, people to come and have a look. If they like it, great. If they don't. But the $50 was never a part of the agreement. We cannot afford it. It's not sustainable. And we would like to keep pickleball going in Whangamata.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
We'll discuss that in a bit. Thank you. Okay, next we have Rob Boscombe.
Good morning. This is Graham Manson. He's with me forward from the Whangamata Ratepayers Association. It's really just a heads up to let you know that the Ratepayers Association is active. I think it was a bit of a slow year last year, but we have had our first meeting. We've formed a committee which is pretty strong. We've got a secretary, a lady here, and a couple more members on our committee. We identified 3 things for the ratepayers. One is management of the Ratepayers Association, obviously, communication with our in-town and out-town ratepayers. We're working hard to get our database up so we can get in good communication with them. Our aim is to be a conduit for ratepayers and residents in this area, just to represent them at this forum and other forums. We identified 4 things at our meeting that we wanted to do in our first month, and that was to be involved with the long-term plan process, and we've joined forces with Grey Power, and we're assisting with the organisation of the meeting tomorrow. And we have to say we've had some excellent interaction with the councils and community board on that. One issue was that it's ongoing with John Spencer of the mangroves and the condition of the harbour. There was a meeting on the 26th of February with the Waikato Regional Council, which was productive, but probably didn't eventuate with much of a result. There was some comments regarding the statement of intent, and I've noted this again. It was signed on the 16th of 2016 by TCDC and Waikato Regional Council CEOs. We don't believe that's been resolved, and I've been asked to just ask if there's any progress on that to date. One of the difficulties that the locals in Harbour Care have is working with a resource consent condition that makes it pretty hard to work with, and that's something that they're trying to work through. We're talking about tidying up what we call the debris on the beach area, which is at the other side of the causeway. This may well cause some issues with the WRC in terms of removing those dead pieces of mangrove. We attended a Harbour Care meeting just recently, and there was a proposal put forward for the wildlife habitat improvement, which is forming an area for breeding of birds. But the thing that came out of it for the ratepayers was that this is on record from 2 experts in Untitled and Whangamata, that this has been the worst dotterel breeding season for a long time, and it's due to the high number of visitors and uncontrolled dogs. The effect caused on breeding birds by domestic pets, notably loose dogs on the beach, was significant, and several factors were noted. That was irregular dog patrolling, abuse by non-locals of the public who pointed out the regulations of dogs on the beach, and some inappropriately placed and confusing dogs on the beach signage. And it's some of the signs you don't actually see them until you're out of your car, your dog's off the lead, and then you see the sign halfway down the dunes. We talked at length about the New Year Christmas entertainment for young people in Whangamata. We're asking if the community board has any plans or initiatives to address this age group for 2021-22. Is there any consideration to the revival of the festival for young people, which in the past had council support, and I believe had an events coordinator? And if so, is there a venue in mind for such a series of events? We've listed a series of considerations. And then finally, in the process of advertising the long-term plan and dealing with the swimming pool and trying to get some advertisements for our town, it's pretty clear that the younger people in town and people with families find this process quite difficult. It's difficult to get to meetings at this time of the day. It's difficult to get to meetings tomorrow for the long-term plan. It's difficult to get to meetings on Saturdays with families. And we're going to try and investigate. We've already made a couple of reaching out to a couple of people here, younger people who are going to try and get to the meeting tomorrow. But we need to look at some initiatives to try and encourage those people to get involved. One of the key things that came out of the conversations we had is shortage of rental accommodation. So that's us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Questions? Rob, I've got a quick question.
Oh, sorry.
You mentioned that you're looking to represent the residents and ratepayers.
Yep.
I noticed your name is just the Whangamata ratepayers. I know in other areas they talk about being residents and ratepayers. Do you think having the word residents there might give you some more members, people who are not owning their own home but would like to support your group?
I need to talk to some of the older hands on that committee about that. I'm fairly new to it, so I think it's always been the Whangamata ratepayer.
It has, but I know in other areas it's quite often the our residents and ratepayers group or whatever, which makes it more inclusive for the whole community. If you're looking to get more members, there's a lot of people who aren't ratepayers, but certainly have a stake in town who may be willing to support your group. Yeah, just throwing it out there. Something
It might need a constitutional change, Ken, and it might be, well,
could be expensive. Any other questions for Ross?
sorry.
I just have one around the TCDC SOI with WRC.
Yeah.
I think it'll be raised obviously tomorrow. We've got Dennis Tegg there coming to the meeting, but maybe, I don't know, Bruce might want to comment on it during the meeting. But as far as I know, there's been little discussion with the new CEO of WRC over this with Rob. So we're waiting to see if that communication improves.
Cool.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is there anything?
We're going to duck off.
Okay, cheers. Thank you, Ross.
Do the standard.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Susan Coffey. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This was sort of an idea that Gary and I sort of came up with at 10 o'clock last night at the dinner party, so this is a bit ad lib. But I'm passionate about teenagers and the Williamson Park entertainment and on New Year's Eve, because we've been coming to Whangamata since the 80s, and our teenagers went through the summer festival regime, which used to be fabulous. The rationale behind the summer festival was if you had most of the kids entertained in the park, the 10% or so that wanted to run around and graffiti and be a nuisance, the police could keep an eye on them, because all the good kids were actually herded in the park enjoying the music. And we used to have bands every single night, and even bands like Twisty Willow and a Irish band, those kids danced till they dropped till midnight, and then they'd go home happy. So my plan is, I know now bands are very expensive and they're very precious, and kids will come along, I don't like that band, I'm not going to listen to that. So my idea was, if we had a DJ can just read the crowd and play whatever the kids want to play. We want a set of this, now we want a set of that, we want more of this, we don't want that. And a DJ would relate to the teenagers. He would be much cheaper than a band, wouldn't need all the gear, and would be actually very popular, and they have a massive playlist. So immediately you're going to think, well, what about, these drunk kids arriving in the park? For a kick-off, if they arrive a little bit drunk, they will dance themselves silly rather than just standing around picking fights and being a nuisance. And secondly, if you had police around the park, so the kids would know that as they came down the road, there were going to be boys and women in blue who were going to be looking at them, and they would hear by the shouting and the yelling and carrying on which groups are too drunk to come in, and they'll say, sorry guys, out, you're drunk, you're not coming into the park. So it could be done. And my other thought is that as a teacher of secondary school kids for 30 years, I think I know quite a lot about how teenagers work, and they're not that different nowadays to what they were years ago. What I think we've got to do is we've got to appeal to the positive side to them. So my key idea is that we would write a letter, which I'm happy to write, and send that letter as an open letter to all the principals of the schools that we think come into Whangamata. We'd have to go to Wellington, because they come up from Wellington as well. We sent an open letter to every single secondary school and intermediate school and asked the principals to read that out of assembly, to the effect that Whangamata would like to give you guys another chance. You've had a bad rap over the years. Some of your predecessors have brought that bad rap on you. We're prepared to give you kids another chance, and we're prepared to say we will provide entertainment on the 30th and the 31st. It has to be both nights, because on the 30th the kids are as high as kites, and often trouble is caused more on the 30th than it is on the 31st. Both those nights, we're going to be a DJ in the park. We're inviting you to come to our town and enjoy yourselves. And we know that we can rely on you, and we want to give you kids another chance and to come in here and have fun, because it is it's really quite pathetic to see those kids they don't want to hang around campsites, they don't want to hang around the bats, they're teenagers, they just want to be together. and give them something positive to do, walk in the park, music going. Music and riots actually don't go together. You have one or the other. So I reckon we should go music and forget this riots word. And I reckon that we gave the kids one chance this year and said, and now it doesn't get around the problem of the parents. Parents are a little bit harder to control, but that's definitely, but what I'm focusing on, let's be positive about kids instead of always going on these ghastly teenagers and we don't want them in town and how can we keep them out. And I really do believe the trouble this year, not that there was that much, I mean it was that one group of kids, and why on earth they got off the roof I have got no idea if there was a policeman anywhere in sight. But a lot of them, they were bored, but they were also very frustrated that all their big brothers and sisters and cousins and mates were out at Joe's farm with 6 bands going on, and they were fed up. That how come those kids got to leave? It's all set up for them, and there's nothing there for us. So I think it's high time we look. These are school kids we're talking about, 13 to 17. And because the other ones will be out at Joe's farm. So that's my plan, and I think we should give it a go. Because the Mount says no and Whitianga says no, everybody thinks teenagers are a problem. Well, we should set a new bar and say, we actually welcome teenagers and we know that we can rely on you guys to actually play ball. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Susan. Questions?
Yeah, I've got one. Around the security, police versus sort of security firm, do you think the police are a little more standing in there in front of the youth coming onto the park has been confrontational?
No, because I think what you'd say to the police, a lot of police are really, what we've actually found that, some of them do come into town all pumped up. Right, these damn teenagers, we're going to sort them out. But I think what we would say to the teenagers, we don't want that, please. We've invited these kids to come to our town. We have invited them to a big dance party in the park. Please don't make it confrontational. Please come and say, come on, guys, you're good. Come on and have a good time. Yeah, and just be nice. Don't do this. That's what we don't want. And my experience of teaching in schools, and I've taught billions of them, is the principals that are just inclusive and nice. There's a lovely culture in those schools and the kids cooperate. When you get a principal that's like this, the kids get resentful, and they get stroppy, and they don't, and we all know schools that's like that. But I came from a school, Hillcrest High, where Kevin Hesse was the principal. He had the whole school letting out of his hand for about 12 years because he was just inclusive, and he just expected that the kids were going to cooperate, so they did. And I just think it's a nice way. So we would say to the police, we don't want heavy-handedness, thank you very much, just support the kids. And actually a lot of the police do. I mean, a lot of the kids say that the police do talk to them on the street and just chat to them and things, and that's what we would want. But we just need the police, because otherwise, as you say, you're going to say, we don't want a whole lot of drunk kids in the park causing trouble. But once they get in there, even if they're drunk, they're going to start dancing, because all the other kids are going to be. Yeah, no, music is, if you've got really cool music is great for people's mood.
Right, very, very good. And just one other quick question. We're thinking of no glass on the park. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, if there's a liquor ban, years ago when the liquor ban really worked, it didn't work this year. This year there was cans and bottles all over the streets. I don't know what happened to the liquor ban this year. But previous years, the liquor ban was so strict. It was, the kids just were too scared to go out with cans because they were getting all their drink tipped out. They were being arrested. Of course, they can't bring drink into the park. Of course they can't. No, that's the thing. I mean, that's another reason there would be police. They would know that they would be checked. But see, the thing is the kids come into the park anyway. Were they in the park this year? Yes. And they're tens of thousands. So, and so how are you going to keep them out of the park? You can't. So they're going to come into the park. Yeah, so whether they come in to a dance concert or whether they come in just to hang around in Blackies and sit and chat with them, But I just think if they're coming to dance, they're probably not going to bring their booze in because they've had that. They've had it at home. They've preloaded at home. Yeah. I mean, the preloaded, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Are there any more speakers from the public forum? If not, okay, someone like to move, we accept those. Moved by Capex, by Williamson, all in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Okay, are there any items not on the agenda? There are not. Are there any conflicts of interest? It's not? No. Okay, minutes for confirmation, so they've been circulated, the minutes for the 16th of February.
So moved.
It's moved by Terry, seconded by Kay. Any discussion? If not, those, all those in favour?
Can I
Oh,
just,
sorry.
I'm just still a bit confused
Okay.
about the discretionary fund. Can I, okay, the pickleball? Those, or
Is
will
it
we do
in
it
there?
later?
Is it in there?
Yes.
Are you disputing the words that are in the minutes?
Well, I thought when we gave that, the $600, we discussed how there was going to be the beach hop and Easter. And so that, the whole trial thing with the $600 was going to be from Easter on
No, that's not what
for
the
3
minutes say.
months. I know that's not what's said here, but honestly, that's where I got totally confused because I can't see the point in giving them the $600 before they get the toting thing.
Well, the minutes are as I recall at the meeting, so
But
Does
I thought
anyone
the
else
whole
think the minutes
thing,
wrong?
I thought the whole thing was for after Easter.
It's
no,
just
that
the
is
take
number
us
3.
I know that it says the tapers on
I think
Easter.
yeah, potentially it's just the confusion around when
Yeah.
600 was allocated, but it was, the initial resolution was the 1,200 from January to June, so we split it in half.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the Easter was the cut-off point, we didn't want to take down the markets.
Yeah, I know, that's
the
why
Easter was only the tapes from my recollection of this. So
Yeah,
that's-
see, that's where I just can't see that, because the hall is not able to be used on at least 3 or 4 Mondays. So that's why I'm totally confused. I thought of both of it, the 600 and the tape, started after Easter, but obviously I was wrong. I just can't see the point, giving them $600
Well,
to
that's
finish
what
on
the
the
resolution
17th
says,
of
and that-
April.
and I'm confident, well, my memory is that's what we discussed. So,
We can talk about it later.
Sorry.
okay.
I just-
Okay, well, we've had it moved and seconded, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, moving on to the draft long-term plan, and we've got item 2.1, we've had a draft submission included, and we've also had some board members indicate that they want to make some amendments or additions to that. So if I just go through it page by page, and people can raise anything they want to discuss. So the first page, which is down to issue 4, the sale of land, anything there that people need to discuss?
I agree with the first bit, yeah. And some narration around it for good, but that's all good, yep.
Okay, so then we've got the next page, which is the rubbish and recycling, visitors will stop there, issue 5 and 6. People happy with the suggestions there?
Yep.
Okay.
Change.
Right, moving on to the Capex budgets, and this is where we also have some amendments. We'll deal with those after we consider the first one. So, got items 1 to 8 there. Any discussion on the items there? If not, I'll turn now to, item 9, sorry, beach road toilet. Beach road toilet, and then Councillor Walker, you've got some items you want to have considered to be added. You want
Yes.
to take us through those?
I will. I've circulated those points to the members. The first one is the Nid Curb project, which started in 2014, and a desire to complete this project on all the streets that require it, or otherwise they'll be curb and channel and options for footpaths. Put that in as a program between 2021 and 2024. The second one is to move the stormwater improvements that were started in 2007.
Oh, no, we'll deal with one at a time, yeah. Just everyone happy with the suggestion to put some money for the curb, 2.5?
Yep.
Okay. Stormwater?
Stormwater is in the must-dos at the moment, but it's pushed out to 2026 to 31, I think it is. And I just feel that this was started in 2017 after a weather event, and we've done modelling and we've done some inspections of the pipes. and it's one of our key requirements for town because we haven't got a lot of stormwater infrastructure. To move this forward into the 2021-24 long-term plan budget, to move it forward. It's already in there, we want to move it forward.
The timing of it.
Yeah, timing.
People support it,
Yeah.
submitting on that basis, okay?
The third one is the Causeway Bridge to the mountain bike track. The must-dos on a safety and urgent concern with cyclists riding across the causeway up that way. It's very narrow. The road is quite dangerous in terms of cars trying to manoeuvre through that area. It would involve an extension to the bridge on the south side to allow a cycleway along that side of the causeway across the bridge and up on the left-hand side heading out of town, to connect with the footpath further out to head towards the cycle track and out there as part of a cycle.
Do you see that it could be on the north side too, if that was the best advice?
If they would have to extend the walkway bridge out further, wider, maybe.
Well, they'd be doing that either way.
Yeah.
But that would come under the scoping, we'd look at that, look at the two options.
The advantage of having it on the south side is that for people from Moana House, a lot of them walk up the road there. They have to cross the road to come the other way on the northern side. Whereas if it was on the southern side, they can stay on that side of the road and continue up.
And it is a safety
Yeah,
thing.
we'll work that through the scoping thing if it's important.
So I would like to see us actually looking at both options, because I still think the one on the right-hand side, with all the footpaths already in place, is probably going to be a lot more cost effective.
Okay, I don't think we need to be prescriptive at this
No,
stage.
but we don't need to just say the south side.
No, we're not saying anything in this one.
No,
No.
We're just
But if we're
causeway.
getting scoping.
Scoping. Okay?
Okay.
People generally happy with that?
Yep.
Looks like it.
Sorry, just can we update the nib curve to be nib curve and channel? I think that's important to include the full scope of what that project.
Yeah, well, it's got curb and channel in there.
Yeah. the-
I know, but we just recorded it as nib curve, which always.
No, we'll put both, but we'll spell curve K-E-R-V.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. The next one is the Moana Reserve. This is a project that has been sitting there since the clearing of the mangroves along that side of we're talking about where the exercise areas along this side of the Moana. One side is looked after council, the other side is it's a joint ownership between WRC and DOC, but it's got a lot of local rubbish that's been dumped there. This is a plan or project that's we're suggesting to support the harbour team who stepped up and say they want to lead this project and tie in regional council and DOC if any way they can to clear this whole side of that Whangamata.
Okay, people support it?
And the last one is a spatial plan for Whangamata. We've got big issues with housing, short-term accommodation, towns expanding, things are costing. We're looking to try and draw up a spatial plan for the town that looks at the town's requirements for the next 20 or 30 years. This is part of the new Natural Built Environment Act that these are required now. And I think we should get this in the plan to start working on this. It's not a short-term plan thing, it's a long-term plan thing. And I'm suggesting that we put this in the plan and that is supported, start developing this plan for the future of the town.
And do you think $100,000 would be enough for that?
Most probably not. I spent $300,000 in Thames, but I don't think we're looking for quite the type of restructure of moving their town out of. We're looking at expanding our town, not moving the town. So I don't know if the number's right or not.
Put that on as a, I'm sure staff will provide advice to council comes forward as a solution. So they see they'll that figure.
And the last one's just an option to consider again. It's just the Whangamata boat launching ramp. At the moment, the boats are all launched off the beach, and there's a pontoon one end. And this is around discussion with the boating clubs. They put a pontoon another end and concrete the rough strip between the two, so boats can be launched without the issues of if you've got a front wheel car, he gets caught up on that loose gravel trying to pull the boat out. But that's just something that I think that can be put in the plan later in the plan, maybe 2025 plus.
Okay, what sort of figure would you be thinking there?
Again, this would have to be scoped at that time, I don't got no idea.
I'd probably say £500,000 as a starting figure.
300,000, I think it's just a concrete strip and a pontoon, I don't think there's pontoons in that there, but.
Okay. That's 300k. And so I've called those items 10 to 15. I'll get, and then we've got Gary.
It's slipped through the boardwalk.
Yeah.
I've been having a little fun with my computer, but we've got back there again. I don't see that stage 2 and stage 3 of the boardwalk need to be really included in the must-have at all. You only see that there's stuff that has to happen on stage 1, and the costings just seem to be. Do we actually know what the costings are going to be for stage 1?
Well, we've had advice from staff on that. But,
the figures that keep changing.
Well, they're out in years 23, 24 and 24, 25. So that'll be something that the future board can also and council can consider if the figures are.
But is there a reason that we can't leave it on the nice to have, like it's diluting the rest of the projects if we are putting
If
so
you
many
put it,
on
well,
the
my
nice to
concern
have?
is put it in nice to have, it doesn't go into the long-term plan at all. And then if the future board in 3 years' time says, well, we'd like to have that, it's not in the long-term plan. That's my understanding, if it's not in at all.
It can be nice to have in the long-term plan, that now, because we're having a must-to-dos and the nice-to-have, so it's
So I
incorporated in a nice-to-have.
remaining in the nice to have, but in the submission, we've suggested that it should move to the must have, and I think
So just start to clarify, the final adopted LPP, maybe Bruce or Ivan can answer, will the nice to haves be in the printed document and what's their status?
Well, it's outside the first reading.
Start with it.
So it's through the chair, I think it's only in the consultation document that the nice to have.
It's my understanding if they don't go in, they're lost. So then in 3 years' time, if the next board decides, okay, we want to proceed with stage 2 or stage 3, there's nothing to hang your head off. And you've got to go through the whole process of getting in there, whereas it's easier for the board in 3 years' time to say, no, we don't want to drop it out through the annual planning process. That's why I'm saying have it in at this stage so that it's not a lost project, because the board has been supporting this for a while, and then come to the time if the costs are too much, the board can say, no, drop it out.
Through the chair, I think that's what's been a lot of our problem too, is we put it nice to have and they've been dropped off. And I think this is where we have to be a bit careful and just go with the must have. We're probably not going to get half of them anyway.
But yeah, if you don't put them in as a
If you
must
don't
have,
put them in,
it
you're not
won't
going
be
to
there
get them.
at all. It won't impact on the
No.
year's rates,
It's still got it.
because it's in years 20, 24, 25.
If I can be noted, I think it would be nice to have.
Okay, well, you can vote against it. Okay, now Gary, you wanted something on Williamson Park safety.
Yes, well, I think the discussion we had, perhaps I can come with what you suggested the way to deal with it.
Okay, so we talked earlier perhaps about putting some funding, 25k, in for Williamson Park safety improvements, principally around footpaths and pedestrian safety, in year 1 as a Capex project. And if that's not sufficient, there's also we're also asking for some parks, capital works for, which could be looked at as
So
well.
that's going to be part of your submission,
That'll be part of our submission, yeah, so
that you put in 25,000.
25k for safety improvements. So we've got 9 items there, and we've got another 10 to 16 identified now. So you've got the whole submission. I'll get this. I'll just. We've got the 9 in the order paper. We've also got 10, which is nip curb or curb and channel, to come in over the next 3 years. We've got number 11, stormwater improvements. We're asking that to come forward to start in 2021. 12, looking at a scoping for a bike extension to the Causeway Bridge and possible construction after that. 13, clean up the Whangamata Reserve Eastern Side 20K. 14, spatial plan for 22-23, and that's 100 grand. 15, year 2025-26, 300,000 for launching boat ramp and second pontoon, and for next year Williamson Park, number 16, Williamson Park safety improvements, 25k. So that's the items we have in the plan. So should we work through them section by section, and or you'll just
All bar them.
okay, well you can just vote against it on that basis, yeah.
And will we have an opportunity for the public feedback prior to us making a decision?
All right.
Yeah.
But they'll go to the 12th, and then
Because-
they'll all be put together in a package, and then they'll be available for reading for councillors, I presume, and then they'll have the submission hearings
Yes.
in May. And then
When are we submitting our submission?
before the.
After this meeting, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll draft it all up and submit the submission. And I just wanted to clarify that you wanted to speak.
Definitely, yes.
And so what's our final date for the community board submission?
The same as everybody.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we don't have an opportunity to incorporate community feedback.
Well, they will be able to.
They will be able.
They can make their own.
Yeah, but it would still be good for us to,
See where.
Well, I can always reflect if there's overwhelming public opinion on anything when I make
Yeah.
the submission, say, this is the board submission, and I'm aware that the community is also of the same view, so I can bring it in on that basis. But we won't be able to have time to alter this after tomorrow's meeting. But there'll also be a lot of submissions from the community you won't even be aware of, because they'll just go straight to council. Okay, so I'll move that submission. Someone like to second that? Okay, all those in favour? Against?
And just to provide me on.
Well, you probably, because you have to listen, so you probably don't want to vote anyway.
But I would note that you put voice concerns or
and I'm also, yes.
All those in favour, well, it's been carried. Okay, so we now move on to Williamson Park Years E, and we have the report, and we have Kirsten. Kirsten, would you like to speak to your report?
So to get the facts and figures and stuff for this report, staff met with Arthur Brown Security, the police, and people that have put on events, Dennis Beaver in Williamson Park previously. The police obviously do have concerns about events being in that park as well. And one of the comments that they did say was that last year, although we had a blip, is what they called it, that we shouldn't be despondent because the numbers for arrests and things are coming down. There is a 2-year history in the report about the numbers of arrests coming down in Williamson Park and throughout Whangamata, and also the serious assault incidences are also coming down. Council isn't, we're not event organisers, so obviously if somebody was to approach me or somebody else in council and want to host an event in Williamson Park, we would work with them just like we would for any other night. The resource consent does make it quite constraining to have an event in there on New Year's Eve, but we could, there are workarounds, but there would need to be somebody who could meet these conditions be required to approach us, and we have done expressions of interest in the past and had nobody come back. So if anyone's got any questions, I take it that you've all read it.
Well, you heard Susan Coffey talk, didn't you?
That's right. So is she willing to, is she wanting to host an event?
Well, no, I think, well, she possibly could, but I think we've got to be prepared to consider support, because I don't know really anyone I've spoken to who lives here or comes in here who is keen with what's happened in the last 2 years. They want something organised. And we just can't abdicate our responsibility. And of course, last year was a bit of a beat up. We just happened to have a reporter there, and she just beat it up, because I know I was sitting there watching it, and when I was my balcony. So it was just a beat up, and she made a story and everyone grabbed onto it. What we need to do is we had 4 teenagers, and there's things that can be done, as we saw just recently with the big shop. There was probably, I don't know, 15 to 20,000 people there on Saturday in the park. Sure, it's daytime, and sure there were adults, but the reality is there's no problems if you have larger groups of people with adults present as well as younger people as it used to be. And we need to get something underway towards that, because before we blink, we're going to be going, it's all too late again. And I noted you said, well, the council doesn't organise events and things. Well, of course, you were the people that brought the application to commercialise Williamson Park and have that for yourselves. So you can't have it both ways. And I think you're going to have to look at, we need to look at some budget to get something looked at and tender for people to come forward on. The way it was set up with the stage that's there, with the other bits they added to it, was perfectly adequate. And we just need to actually give everyone a chance to have something for the young people and the family, which it always used to be. The families used to never any real problems at all. And we just need to get the police off their butts a bit and just mingle as they, rather than going out to Joe's Farm. If Joe's Farm want them, they're going to have to pay for them.
Well, we're not guaranteed that there'll be an event at Joe's Farm on New Year's Eve this year. There is nothing planned currently. St John's probably have a different opinion than you with regards to the issues that have happened at Williamson Park, and I'm sure, I think I've seen somewhere before that these have been shared.
Yeah.
The past reports were quite scathing, is that the right word? They're quite disappointing to read about the issues in the in Williamson Park. So first, what we would need to do is firstly find an event organiser who's willing to put on an event in that park, and secondly go to the police and to St John's and ask if they would support an event in the park. And if we had their support, then I guess it's something that we could work with the event organiser to work in with that resource consent. But until we got that support,
we don't need to have the police. They have sworn duty to do their job. Uphold the law. So if we decide to want to do it, they will be there.
Yeah, through the chair, just a couple of points from my perspective. I think when we say that we didn't receive expressions of interest, I'm pretty sure it was around October, November of 2019 that we asked for submissions for December of that year. So I don't think we can really go off the lack of enthusiasm or availability. We didn't give anyone appropriate time to plan. I think we need to at least give the opportunity to the public rather than saying there's absolutely no one that's interested in organising anything. And as we've discussed in the previous meeting, potentially it is changing what is in the park rather than a band to an amusement park or something like that. So changing the entertainment. And lastly, I think for me, being in town on New Year's Eve, a number of arrests seems to relate to the number of police that are in town, and it just doesn't seem to have the same presence. And so to say that the seriousness and the arrests is down, I think it's pretty subjective. I think that last year was a pinnacle of terrible behaviour.
Well, I think if the number of arrests is not subjective, that's quite a definitive number you can count. I'm just going to say, if the board went out, or the council went out and asked for expressions of interest for people to put on an event, whether it's an amusement thing or a DJ or whatever, if they ask for financial support, the board, through its various funds, could consider supporting them. Is that correct, Arlene?
Got a discretionary grant.
Discretionary grant. So if there was an appropriate event came forward, which we felt was going to tick all the boxes, we could look at funding it, but we need to be convinced that it was the right event. But is there, so we're now in almost the end of March. Is there a willingness of the board to see if we could request fees for expressions, see what might come out?
I just want to continue the discussion, okay? So I understand that Lady Camp spoke this morning, and I've had talks to people, and putting on a DJ is not an expensive item, but do they have to get them captured into all the other requirements of the park? If they do, that's an expensive item. And that's the one I'm trying to get my head around. So at the moment, we spend $22,000 on security. They're supposed to just look after the assets on the park, which are really the toilets.
Toilets, all of council's assets, the stage, the toilets.
The stage, the toilets, and the barbecues.
The barbecues, yeah.
So, well, the police can do that, and we use the money for something else, I don't know, but putting on an event, you'll never get it right for all the kids, but the idea is to get most of the kids busy doing something, and the cops look after the rat bags. Really, that's what we're trying to achieve. But to do it by just funding up the DJ guy, I'm worried about what other things he's going to be hooked into. Is it going to be rubbish? Is it going to be security? Is it going to be traffic management? Toilets? And that escalates the price up, which is concerning. And how we deal with that, because if we don't have to have it fenced or anything of that. We don't know. It doesn't need to be fenced. It doesn't need to be controlled tickets. It's just an open concert on the park with a DJ making music out of the stage. Is that possible?
Well, your thing is that you still have to comply for the resource consent, which still says that you need to provide your toilets, your TMP. When you haven't got a fence ticketed event, it's a bit hard to tell what numbers you're going to get into the park. And it can't be ticketed, in which case that's where a lot of people are going to find it hard to fund to put on something, because they have to meet those costs and how they have,
That's what I'm confused about.
Yeah.
Well, there is a resource consent already. It's been made.
That's right, and then in the resource consent, it says that even for a non-ticketed fenced event, you still have to comply with your quarterly requirements, your traffic management plans, your security. So those are costs that the event organiser would have to cover to put an event in the park, even if it's free.
I think that we spend a lot of time talking about what's possible, and that, to me, this isn't about that. Aren't we just saying we're giving the public an opportunity to make submissions, and then we'll evaluate them on their own back? That's the best one.
Yeah, that's
what we're doing, but the cost we need to understand.
Well, wouldn't we just evaluate that at the time, because potentially we will receive no submissions and we have the answer to our question. And then that's our answer to the public as well. When have we done our best to create a solution that wasn't last year's solution?
What if somebody just rocked up with a DJ thing, locked himself on the stage at 10 o'clock and put in the music?
I told you I wasn't bring your ear.
What's that?
Well, there is a problem. He's right behind you.
But aside from that,
In your boombox.
yeah, I got a good.
We've really made it difficult for ourselves, haven't we? This is the drama, because we all started this when you go back because we were concerned with the current provider on the park's performance, wasn't it? Get back to that Coromandel meeting where the ambulance and the police and everybody got together and said, we're not doing this anymore. And then we've got rolled into this 15-year thing and consents, and all it is just combining a drama, which seems hard to fix.
I think we should.
I'm looking at the consent and the conditions of the consent. And it says conditions applying to all events with the lighting system not directly aimed at residential properties, continues on about lighting when they turn off. and about tables, to remove things from temporary structures at a certain time, secure any timelines to move them, and acoustic conditions, and they set out the amount there is to be, the noise requirement, and I'm just looking for those things that you're saying about toilets and portaloos. I can't find it.
Just have a look at it. There, page, what is it? 21.
21.
I'm still of the belief that we should look at an alternative to Williamson Park
Conditions apply
to give to some of these things. Be
It's
it
still
down by
gonna-
the Ocean Sports Club or be it the rugby club, and take it away from Williamson Park with all the problems.
It's still going to be there.
I think that's where they'll go.
Well, I think Dave's got a point that down by the Ocean Sports Club, there's a park there. That the they've got a big tent on it, totally reserved. They put the big tent for the Ocean Sports Club fishing tournament on it, which is a great thing. And if there was something there that was noisy and going to happen, maybe it will attract some people down there.
It's not big enough.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just open-minded to this.
So I think what Tamsin was saying is probably the best way to go, is go back for your expressions of interest. If you get them, then exactly that, you evaluate them as they come. If you don't get any, then that's your answer.
Maybe we ask for expression of interest for holding an event for the youth in Whangamata.
Yeah, exactly, and leave it open as to
And
whether
see what happens.
Yeah.
Williamson Park or somewhere.
So don't
else,
be
you know.
specific about the type of event or the location, just.
Sure, Williamson Park is still, that's the main, that's what people.
It is the main.
That's why we've got to cover Williamson Park. And the requirements there aren't as onerous. The conditions are all set out. And I just can't quite work out some of these costings for expressions, which quite amazing.
No, we start seek expressions of interest.
What's your idea, Kirsten?
Well, I think what Tamsin is, I mean, if you have no money, and I think probably status quo is the easiest option, but if you're wanting to put something on, I think what Tamsin has suggested about putting out for expressions of interest is probably the way to go, and see what comes back. And then we can evaluate them, put them all together and come back. I have been out to a few amusement park places. I've been to Mayans, I've been to, there was another one I went to, and they're not available for New Year's, sort of Christmas, New Year's period. They've long-standing agreements, one's in Hastings and somebody else is in Christchurch, but I mean, there must be other places, I think putting out experience, maybe in the Hauraki Hill, not just in the local one.
Could we do for the 21 to 22 and 22 to 23, in case there is someone like that isn't available this year but might
Do a 2-year thing.
Yeah,
I think the main thing is that you don't specify.
what it is, where it is, who's doing it.
Just, is there somebody,
Yeah,
as you say, that wants to put on a public event in Whangamata the New Year?
We should, if we're going to do it, we should make it that submissions or any offers are put in by the beginning of June or the end of June, which gives us room to work after that time with whatever comes ahead. So,
They normally get them pretty early, don't you, if there's something going on?
I've already got bookings for this year coming.
Yeah. So, so very the kids get the
Country music in the park.
Really, a beer festival will work, wouldn't it? A beer festival is really what they want.
Yeah. And country music.
Yeah, let's do that.
Charlie Fry.
Want your own Oktoberfest.
A whole lot of buckets.
No, not in the
Okay, so we've got some resolutions there. We've got one that we received the report, 2 is an E, but an A, or what does the word portable mean there?
I highlighted the sure. Secure portable toilets, portaloos.
It's supposed to be toilets.
So portable,
Portable.
Lighting,
portable lighting.
lighting.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I see the one ahead.
Ariana type it.
Oh, lighting. Yeah. Thank you. This one. Request staff seats.
I think we have to spell out Williamson Park. Spell it out and say or some other, because you're not going to get it. We've tried to have it before down with the rugby clubs. They're
Still going to be Williamson.
Yeah, they threw their toys out of the cot when we tried to do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we're just wasting our time. We've got a consent with conditions for Williamson Park.
So you might as well put Williamson.
Yeah, it's got the house set out and everything.
You might as well
All there.
Expression of interest.
All there. They can be given a copy of the conditions.
Because that's what my kids say, it's going to be Williamson.
Organise the,
Because if you put something on the rugby ground,
to organise an event.
it's a magnet. It is.
I ain't gonna figure it out, it's too.
We went there with the kids.
Yeah, but
We took
some might
fires.
go to one way, some might go to
We
the
had
other.
fires on the bed.
So what I'm hearing two different views. Some are saying leave it open for the whole of town, and others are saying.
No, I think you got to specify. I'm with Gary. I think
The problem with the rest of town is each park will have a different district plan rule about how many numbers can go. And you'll probably find yourself in a situation where you need to get a resource consent.
And we've got one.
We've got
It needs
one.
to be applied, so.
I think it just doesn't happen on the upside, so.
Yeah.
That's right, because you're still going to have your 500.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like the majority of viewers do stick with Williamson Park.
Yeah. The kids will still go there.
So you can take out any Whangamata probably.
You need some responsible parents to go. What are you doing?
Yeah, basically, anyone interested can have conditions of consent, which are there.
To make them available.
Make available to anyone.
Well, the staff can do that when they talk experiences with us, I'm sure. We are the resource consent requirements. Okay, so we've got one there, we've got two, we've got an A or a B. A is basic security, B is to chuck lights, and is that the difference? I'm quite keen to have lighting there, I think it makes it safer. So I would go with B. Do people agree?
Do we have to bring lighting in?
Would need to hire them like ASAP, because it won't be available.
And how much of that is portable lighting?
It's in the report.
About $350.
About $350 per tower.
And how many need? I'm looking here, 350 lighting towers to be hired, 350 a day, per day.
Well, we only want them at night,
You could just put one up.
half a day.
So the police were sort of looking for them for those darker corners, so you probably another two, maybe, down by the stormwater.
Are we changing it to stay option 4 and 5?
Through the chair, do we need to put in that we require more release?
No.
No,
No,
we can't do that.
we can't do that. Because I think that was the problem.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we be better to look at installing lighting rather than hiring lighting? I mean, this is an ongoing thing. I mean, for security at any function,
We've got somewhere to hang a camera there too.
you know, yeah.
People won't want lights because it'll shine in their window.
Oh,
Well, they can take, they
But
can,
like the rugby
yeah,
club
they can go out of
lights,
town.
there's only certain times of the year you need the lights.
Yeah.
Need a bit of understanding.
Yeah, you can put option 4, but we'll have the last one and just for clarity.
But I agree, this whole thing about CCTV footage, that's an added security, and people knowing that they're getting filmed.
Well, that's one of our submissions.
We've got a
We've been asking for ages.
Yeah, we've got a submission for long-term plan, so if that goes through, there'll be something.
Does anybody know where the police want the lighting?
They've indicated that they want them in the darker corners, like the stormwater pond and up on the grassy knoll.
2 areas, 2 lights.
2 lights. 2 lights, Kirsten?
They've said those 2 areas, yeah.
Okay.
The problems are the bushes in the park, what goes on here and not the
We don't want to know, but
And they were going to be taken out in the redevelopment of different trees planted, but they never happened.
Trees are now done.
So let's just clear up about whether we need to put poles in there or we're going to put temporary lights in.
Well, I think you need to go for your portable lighting first to see if it's actually going to work and if they're in the right places. And then look at permanent, because if you put permanent lights in there, where are you actually going to put them, which won't affect other things like your beach hop and other events.
And would it be where we put our cameras or not?
That's right. So I think you go for the portable lighting and then see how it works, how it doesn't work, where it goes, where it doesn't go, and work out from there.
Well, let's go for 2 towers, one on each area, 350 a day, 3 days, grand.
Okay, I think we all understand what's there. Someone like to move that?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Second by Dave. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're now on to the work programme. Bruce, welcome. We've got the work programme there. And it all seems to be green or blue apart from the boardwalk. Okay, so we'll start from the top. Any questions on the first page?
First one, just to clarify, because it's been a concern, what is the pontoon you're talking about?
So I think the pontoons, Jen might have sent some stuff out. And so from memory, and I'm not on the detail on that project, but from my recollection, it was like a 20-metre concrete pontoon for boats that boats can tie up to.
Yeah, so we've all been talking about the children's pontoon, which is floating around.
Yeah, okay.
Apartments.
Okay,
So we've always been confused.
I get some confusion now. I see what you're saying now around why there might have been some confusion, thinking about like a children's thing. Yeah. So it's quite different to that.
So it is the floating jetty.
Yeah, jetty or pontoon, whatever term you want to use, but understand, different terms, and possibly one term might have made more sense to the board than the other. I don't know.
So there was discussion about work on the children's pontoon.
Right.
And the ropes around it apparently had to be upgraded on that.
Yes.
But I don't see where that pops up, but I now understand that the jetty pontoon is the one you're talking about, so it makes more sense.
Because we thought it was 80,000 for the ropes around the pontoon.
Yes, I remember several discussions about that around going backwards and forwards, and it kind of makes sense now. I understand why we're on different sides, wondering what the other side was talking about. But no,
floating boat jetties.
We'll change the terms of jetty.
So is there any work to be done on the children's pontoon? That's the question we're asking.
I don't believe so. But
there's no work to be done.
I don't know, but we can follow that.
We can have a look and see.
Yeah.
Is that just a small bit of work? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, it came up as to be done, and it was discussed, because there was talks about changing the pontoon to a grandiose great thing
that was years
ago.
A
while ago. But then there was talks about just upgrading it, and we got into one.
I'll ask the
If
project.
it's just replacing the ropes.
I'll ask the project manager to have a look and come back to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they need to be looked at just for the safety's sake.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on anything else on that page?
The upgrade of the Flying Fox, I see it's been redone again.
Yes.
And that's just the $4,000 for the replacement of the seat, is that right? Is that what it is?
I think the carriage and the seat, yeah.
So the wire had to be upgraded as well?
I think a new wire.
Got net.
The whole box taken.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, the wire, the carriage.
It's not net. Again.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Somebody's got a really nice flying fox on their farm.
Also on the parks and reserves renewals, will we find out what the remaining budget is used for other than just reactive renewals?
Yeah, we can let you know once those things are done. Definitely we can put it back to the board and say this is what we ended up spending money on. Yeah.
And then with the street furniture, will they just find a couple more bench seats that need replacing?
Yeah,
probably, yeah. It's that whole thing where they try and hold off because they know things might fail during the year, so they need that reactive money.
Yeah.
So they hold off, but ideally what I've had them do over the years is they try and earmark a couple of things they could upgrade, if you know what I mean, and then if we get close to the year, right, let's do those.
Okay, so they'll definitely spend the money within Whangamata prior to the 30th of June.
Well, they won't definitely spend it, but it'll be in Whangamata. If they're going to spend it, it won't be anywhere else, is the first point. But if the board are really keen to get something done, irrespective of whether anything needs to be done, then we can look at doing it, yeah.
Bruce, we talked earlier about the boardwalk extensions and dock of advertised for submissions, which are closing on the 28th of April. And if there are any hearings, they're going to be starting on the 10th of May. I'm not sure if there are any hearings on the 10th of May when the decision will be made. How confident you are?
Well, it feels like we're getting stretched out again now, based on that time frame, which is the first. I saw, Ian lettered that to me this morning, so that's the first time I've seen that time frame from Doc. So yeah, that was dragging us out a little bit. So I have to go back to the project manager and discuss that with him around time frames.
There's going to be cost, isn't it?
Not necessarily cost, but just delay.
Well, everything goes up.
Well, true, yeah. If we're talking about escalation or inflation of costs, then yeah. No new cost. But we know the costs do go up, so yeah.
A little bit of big timber.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, listening to an article on that on the radio on the way over, so yeah. But I'll follow up with the project manager around those timeframes now that we know what Doc's timeframes are.
Okay. Anything else people want to discuss? Terry?
Yeah, just the drinking water standards. How's it going on with the project in Whangamata?
Yeah, everything's proceeding as intended. So yeah, I think everything's going well. I haven't had any issues, risks, or any issues come up to me regarding that. So yeah. Will they do an opening like the other ones or not? It's not quite the same, but I know you like to cut a ribbon, Terry. So we'll I'll have a look and I'll see if there's something that we could. Because I mean, it is a big thing. Like it's a serious thing. So I'm not trying to make light of it. It's a lot of money, a lot of time, and it's a good thing for Whangamata. So you can figure that one out. That'd be good. Yep. And the other one, I just to mention that is obviously the water meters are pushed down a little bit now. I understand. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So they're pushed out to they'll probably be like next year. I'd say Whangamata at this stage. So yeah, we've got to concentrate on feeing and get that over the line. And as we've talked about at council, we've got some really tight timeframes on us from government around spending money and getting the project and moving and get progress moving. So yes, Whittiang is the first cab off the rank, and then Whangamata will follow on behind that.
Just a question on the water meters.
Yes.
I know initially they're not going to be used for charging, is that right?
Correct.
But that's possibly going to change down the track.
Could possibly change, be subject to a public consultation process.
Yeah. Has there been any discussion if it does change and people pay for water by meter, what would be the impact on those who have a water?
So there would be no impact on those who have a bore. Yeah, so they'd be, if they're in the area of service, they should be paying a serviceable charge.
Yeah.
And so that it possibly might, it might even go down slightly for them. So there's a serviceable charge. So like if you're in Thames, you pay the fixed charge and then you pay per metre. So if you're on a bore, you pay the fixed charge and that would be it. You wouldn't pay any per cubic metre. And the fixed charge might actually be slightly less than the availability charge as it is at the moment.
A couple of $100 and something.
Yeah, so I think Terry's right on that. So it could actually change slightly. But, as picking up on Kay's points, costs go up all the time. So by the time we actually get there, the fixed charge might have come up to what the availability charge is now. So they might not see a big change. But,
okay, I've just had the question.
They'll either stay the same or go down. It won't be like they won't suddenly have to start paying a whole load more.
Okay. Anything more on the work programme? If not, would someone like to move that?
No, move.
Okay, seconded by Terry. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. New Year's Eve vandalism. So you're going to talk to us, are you, Bruce?
I'll just stay here. I think Ed's probably on the line because a lot of the costs were coming through the roading activity. It's Derek's report, but Derek's not available to present. So between Ed and I have to present this, and I think it was just a little bit of information. It's pretty brief, it's pretty straightforward. Happy to take any questions on it, and Ed might want to jump in if needed.
I've got a question regarding the Williamson Park toilet, which was damaged, looks like every night. Basically, and we are employing the security guards to look after council assets, and that's one of our assets. So what's going on there?
Well, I guess the, and the way Derek's written it here, progressively fouled and damaged each night. I don't know whether it would have been damaged every night or just fouled, not to get vulgar and get into the details, but, so that kind of thing, a security guard's not going to be able to deal with that, I wouldn't imagine, you know what I mean? Someone goes into the facility and then comes out and, unless you nip straight in as a security guard and go, oh, wait a minute, I checked this before you came in and now it looks like this. I don't know, so I don't know.
But you would hear somebody wrecking things, wouldn't you?
If it was damage, yeah, but if it was not damage, if it was just, mistake.
Oh, fouling,
yeah, maybe that, so.
Door frames and toilet seats, walls.
Well, you definitely hear that, yeah.
So have spoken to also with Derek about the possibility next year of actually locking those toilets at 10 o'clock at night. Your next problem would be.
Where they're going to go.
Yeah, but you also, those toilets are absolutely chocker with teenage kids from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's your other problem with your security guards, because you have to remember that security guards, they can't touch people, so they can only deter them. So when you've got all those kids hanging in there, so.
It depends on what you're doing, I suppose, what happens in the park. Obviously, linking back to your first earlier conversation, if you end up with portaloos and stuff around, then you might be in the situation where you lock those toilets at 10, to keep people out, and the portaloos are there for them to use. That's probably a good option.
But who's going to pay for those?
Well, that's a whole other discussion around the event.
Well, this is a discussion where we're spending $22,000 on the security team to look after them, and if they're getting wrecked, then we have to pay portaloos and get them to.
Yeah, I suppose what I'm looking at is that it's easy to do some serious damage to a facility, the permanent toilets, compared to the portaloos. It's like a different setting, but I hear what you're saying, that it's going to add cost to whatever is done.
Yeah, well, that's part of the event.
It's part of the event, thanks.
Yeah, well, that's another cost to the event.
But surely it would be quite easy for these people that we're hiring as security to say, if you see somebody going into the toilets with a bottle, excuse me, no bottles. Isn't that simple? Because they're saying that there were bottles and broken glass and everything in these toilets. So there mustn't have been nobody looking at what these kids were taking into the toilet.
And what the trouble was, that people put their green bins out, they should have put them out that day, so that was the ammunition they were using.
Oh, I know.
Which was a bit
sad.
sad.
They were out the day before.
So having a no glass policy, I think, on this is a really good thing. Also, the roading team recorded 18 signs damaged or stolen, which accounted for $3,059. Was that at the park?
I would imagine they'll be on the streets.
They'll be around the street.
So that's not part of Williamson Park.
Ed's nodding, I think. Above my shoulder. So,
Ed's nodding.
Come in if you need to, Ed.
Yeah, they were spread along multiple roads throughout the area. It wasn't necessarily the park.
Right, thank you, Ed. Thanks, Ed.
Are they the street names or are they giveaway signs?
All variations, streetway, giveaway, the lot.
Okay. Do you sometimes see them lying in the harbour?
Yeah. Yes, I can tell you, Williamson Park, those bushes have one use, they are very regularly used as toilets.
Yeah.
And
always
but the point is, having had 20-something years sitting right on the park watching, the change from when the police would come along and just get the people's booze poured out, everyone knew, within a few days, everyone knew, people weren't doing anything like that. And they just had, in the last few years, they just gave up. And I'm sorry, they've got a job to do, there's a liquor ban, and they're the ones that need to enforce it. That starts happening, the level of behaviour will go up.
And I hear what you say there, Gary, but the problem is that you've got to remember that you've just split your police force by putting so many out at Joe's farm and then what's left here. So, you know, there's only so many. They ended up bringing team policing through from Rotorua.
I realise that, but that was basically too late. And it should have been happening the week, you know, the whole week. I can tell you, our place before we bought it used to be rented to the police as another one of our units would. They were there all the time and had houses all around in the days you could rent places. And they had a high presence. And let me tell you, the behaviour just has diminished because police presence hasn't been there. And we just need, just the mere fact of them being there.
And not tipping out alcohol was an intentional thing, wasn't it? Choosing not to tip out alcohol was intentional.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
But they would go to the cars, open the, get away the booze and pour all their booze out. So no one came to the park with booze.
Well, it's not supposed to have booze at the park anyway.
Look at me.
I hear what you're saying. Brian can probably comment more. I hear what you're saying is that there's rules in place and you're talking about police enforcing those rules.
Yeah. Brian, can we just hear from Brian first?
Yeah, can I just say from the two debrief conversations I've had, I think Inspector Anderson, when he was here, was pretty open about the fact that the pre-planning he wasn't even happy with, and part of their debrief in March was that you'll see that change in terms of stronger police presence around the alcohol ban earlier in coming years. So I think that's fine. They've acknowledged that, and I think secondly, from security's perspective, we've had some conversations with Arthur that, you know, if that firm's still used and we commit to that money, that they can be more proactive in keeping glass off the park. You don't need a glass ban, as we talked about, because you've got an alcohol ban, and currently I think you've got static guards who've just stood around their assets rather than, we've talked about potentially having some guards with bins next to them saying, put it in here, because if you walk into the park, you're going to get an infringement or arrested.
Yeah.
So both of those conversations I've had, those are the communications back with us, and we're going to start our planning for next year.
Right, how many security guards are we paying for?
Was that
Eight. Because I mean, you're just taking two out of the picture straight away by putting one each side of the toilet. You know.
But at least it stops the damage.
But I think what Brian's saying is that we learned from last year, and it wasn't that bad really. It was just a little bit at the end of the night that caused the drama around Blackies. Really, the park was not. I know you saw other things. I know, but this is what they've been told.
Yeah, but perception is it was pretty terrible. Like nationally, it was terrible.
That's wow.
It wasn't. I'm sitting.
It was journalism.
From our reputation.
But it's got them at London, so it was really, you had to have friends in London.
It was a reporter that got her story and got a name out there. She was the problem.
But I think what Brian's doing with the security, and no glass is really key. Throwing cans is a lot easier to handle in your head than a glass bottle. So I think that's a real good thing. Just got to figure out how much we need to protect and how much we need to pay.
Can I just ask, picking up on what Dave said, how that they were out at Joe's farm and then split the thing. I was down there till about, I don't know, 20 to 11 or something. I only saw 2 police cars. I did not see any police on foot. So obviously they came back when the problem started, which must have been what, 11 o'clock?
I was at the fire station, and I can tell you that there were at least 8 cars that were mobile around the...
I know they were cars, but in the other years, the police had walked amongst the kids.
Yeah. The team policing units came in and walked the street when there was trouble.
Yeah, I know, but it was too late then.
Again, Mr. Chair, just to comment on that, in previous years, you would have just seen a beat shot. We've had Hamilton team policing team here saying that they've written, he's been the team that's been here over the last few New Years. He was in Whangamata Township on the 31st. We had the county's team policing unit with us out of Joe's farm. So the extra staff that came for Joe's farm were on top of the team that's always been here. So I think, again, it comes back to the planning and their approach. And I thought Anderson answered that pretty well. And we just remind that 2 years beforehand, the media coverage was that police were too strong in enforcing the alcohol ban. Yeah, we talked about that. Our signage changed as well. Our electronic signs that we saw for Beach Shop that said 24-hour alcohol ban, those last year went for fire and water. And we've learned from that, so again, I think those need to go back to having the alcohol ban messaging, police to have a stronger presence.
How can you be too strong with the liquor ban when you've got a bylaw that says that?
It wasn't us, Chris. Yeah, but again, back to Councillor Scott's point, I think media, that's the two different years we have. And
I've probably, through the chair, I've probably taken you guys off track, sorry, with this report. We've gone right back. So this was just about the vandalism. So yeah, and happy to take any other questions you got. It's pretty straightforward. I think you owe me an apology because Derek had some photos in there of the foul toilet, which I removed. So I don't think you need to see that at the board, so no problem, that's my job. Keep an eye out.
Okay, now I'll move that report be received, seconded by Thames. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Okay, we now come to members' reports. Traffic controls. Yeah. So,
I just move it.
okay, seconded by Kay. Any?
Yeah, I just, Ed had a good look at this and I just here has read the comments that they put through and it all makes very good common sense to me. There's just a one-way giveaway there, that's all it needs. It is at the bottom of the hill and you can come moving down there, so.
Just a question regarding figure 1. I support too, but there's a hedge there. Is that on council land? It seems to be pretty close.
If I may, through the chair, we've checked the hedge. It's on the border. It's about 200 mil into council land, but the majority of the hedge is within private property.
So having the bush trimmed isn't going to help.
No.
It's still quite open there too.
Well, it's not.
It is a good way.
No, I just thought that we might have a chop a chunk off it.
Yeah.
But it's 200 mil.
When you look at it,
Okay. So you'll move this way, will you, Terry?
I'm happy to move.
I'll see.
Seconded by Kay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
And now on the action schedule. So open this for discussion if there's anything anyone wants to discuss.
Yeah, the Williamson accessible platform, where is that?
So through the chair, we haven't pushed to progress that. We've just had other priorities. So I know that you guys are keen for it, and so it will be moved forward, but it just hasn't been a priority at the moment. Apologies, so just resource-wise, we've had to focus on other stuff. So, but I'll take that back to the team. That's on the action schedule. They know that it needs to come back to the board. So. The platform, beach platform, that we removed. Yeah. There was Kay's talking about a report coming back from the council, which we said we'd do about reinstating it there or somewhere else and going through the correct procedures. So, so yeah, we need to look at options before we.
Aren't we going to have to talk to Doc on that?
Yeah, but that's what should happen.
So, yeah, you're right. So if you cast your, we probably don't want to remember.
And we can talk to Paul Shanks about it as well.
Yeah. There's always one. Thanks.
We seem to have got a boardwalk project put as a heading for a number of the items.
Through the chair.
Yes, Terry.
Can I just discuss the Seagull Centre?
Yes.
There's a group that's discussing this. We met on site, but apparently things have a bit changed and they're looking for a variation on where to go on the site because the access way from the farmer is legal.
Right.
And he has access through that area, so they can't use that particular area. Just use swing in there, which is a pain in the butt.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I wasn't aware of that, Terry. No. I thought that the location that they had agreed when you were on site was good.
Good. It was great.
Yeah.
But he's challenged it, and now he's got access, so they've got to think about it again.
Yeah, we need to relook at that then. Yeah. Just trying to think.
What about that area that they use for the bulk storage when you drive in instead of turning left?
Go right.
Towards, yeah, go straight. Yeah.
Didn't want to use that because they use it for a lot of glass and things like that, but I don't know, they have to have.
We might be forced to look at it because I thought of that area when I looked at the plan too, but.
The advantage of that is it's a big area where people can drive in and turn around.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe they're going to have to clear their glass out more often.
We might have to tweak it. Yeah, I think on the left would have been preferential.
It
was really good.
Drop it off, coming through the weighbridge. It was quite a great spot, but
so we'll
it's gone a bit cool. fairly at the moment.
Yeah.
Can I just look at that boardwalk project? I think it's got a wrong heading.
Oh, there's a number of them there. There's about 4 of them that got the wrong.
Because it's got, boardwalk.
Yeah.
Clerical issue, I can confirm it is a clerical issue, that was me, I'm not sure why, one boardwalk project, all of that, so I apologize. I am busy.
Figure out where the water came in the boardwalk.
Is there anything else people want to discuss?
Sorry, what happened to the Macron query?
So I'm doing my best, we just have to work through it on Civic Clerk, but I'm doing my best to get it through, if you check on the minutes, the background is added, so
It was part of the action schedule.
I have it, because I put it through my minutes and make sure that I always have the background, but I do have to work through how we're gonna implement it in the system, and I am looking at that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll see it more throughout.
Yeah, but doesn't it need to be a TCDC?
I believe that the comms representative said that it is a style issue, it's just, and I think you can confirm with that as the comms representative.
We use it in all of our comms, we always double check for it, so it is a style thing, so it's probably just implementing.
And only that there's some backdoor stuff, but it is being looked at, I promise.
So even like the LTP document doesn't have the Macron.
Okay.
It should do. I'll get that double checked.
Just one more if we can.
Okay.
Wentworth Valley Road, I went for a bike ride out there and had a look, and there was a few slips on that, some through the scrim covered walls as well.
Okay.
And one was quite a decent sized one, so I just wondered if it was just something to pass on to Ed and his team, have a look at it, whether I know if there's warranty on the work they do, but it was needed most probably repairing that. But there's about 4 little ones and one good sized one.
Okay.
After that rain event.
Just one more. Bruce, what about those parks in Williamson Park? You know, we talked about getting them raised a bit because it really is getting bad.
So they filled those in with some material.
Yeah.
They've been filled in with
They've been filled in.
Then I sent the update to the board with the photos of them all being filled in.
Yeah, they got some crushed.
Snuck out.
You're probably away.
We snuck out when you weren't looking and did it quickly.
And I haven't been in there since I got back.
Have a look. But at least they filled out the gaps. But it's not fantastic, but it serves the purpose.
As long as it filled it up to the level.
Correct, it is, yeah.
It was all done before beach hop.
I did not get
I know, sorry, but we're slipping.
just because I was on holiday.
Check that you're on the list.
Just while you're here, Bruce, it's completely nothing to do with what's on there. But the opportunity. When Kiwi Road was redone,
yes,
they obviously did some ceilings along the side.
Yeah.
There was a surveyor in the road who was trying to survey for a subdivision there.
Okay.
And the metal
spike,
has all been covered over and can't be found.
Okay.
Is that something that the roading contractors need to be aware of when they're doing their job?
They should be, but I can see how these things would slip under the radar and then suddenly they just get sealed and there's a problem. And I know you talk to surveyors and then often they have to go back and uncover survey marks which do get sealed over by roading crews. But if we know where it is, we can get someone onto it to go and uncover it.
Okay, if you know where it is.
Well, I mean, if the surveyor knows, like it's in this area, can you guys uncover it? If it's like that, then we can do that.
No, something I've never heard of before. But,
yeah, no, I know that talking to surveyors, they often do have to go back out and they do it off their own bat, uncover it because of their business, So yeah, it shouldn't happen, but these things do happen, and I can see how.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I'd like to move that report.
Yeah.
Okay, seconded by Tamsin. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Right, come on to members' reports. So, starting with Kay.
Well, I've had lots of calls while I was away in favour of the Thames bus. And when I came home, there's about 21 people that said they're in favour of the Thames bus.
Great.
The dump station. I noticed there was some talk about improving the dump station in Whangamata. And while we were down south, we came across a lot of them that have been changed from what we've got now to actual drive-overs. So you actually drive over, and this is for your grey water. It's just a pit, and you drive over and let your grey water go. Still got the toilet one, but it just makes a lot of sense if you've got a larger vehicle, because you can just come in and turn around, dump your grey water, and off you go.
I think less spillage.
And there's there was no spillage going everywhere all over the plants. It's like it's just like, and I noticed a lot of them are getting replaced down south. So I'm just wondering whether, you know, in the design stage.
Derek's team have been working on some different options, and they'll be bringing a report to the board.
When?
I couldn't answer for them, but I would be probably expecting May, because they have done those initial investigations to start with.
I did hear the one down by the rugby field was blocked during the beach.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
The problem, from what I understand, with some of the options that were put forward, we're talking of the utilities team, is that they were actually with rising mains, and you can't put them where there's a rising main. So it was actually finding an area where there was easy access. That was able to be done. So the community facilities team have been working on that, and I can follow up.
Because it's in the wrong place. It is in the wrong place.
But at the time when it was put in, it was suitable, because we didn't have the amount of motorhomes that we have now.
And we got a letter from Caravan Association New Zealand saying they would support financially support another one.
Yeah.
So we looked at hopefully out by the wastewater plant if it's possible. So I don't know if that discussion's been had any traction.
It's quite
That's with the community facilities team. They've got all that information. So I will check with Derek, but I would be probably assuming it will come to your May meeting.
And the next thing, I know I keep banging on about it, is Island View. When are we ever going to get any report back on Island View? Who's that?
Report.
Which aspect of it?
All of it. The toilets, the parking,
your
removing the bollards.
Well, all your funding is in the LTPs. Once the LTP consultation has been done, then those things will be able to be progressed, reports will come.
We did have a question mark about the cost associated with it.
I could go on, and I will actually quit now while I'm ahead.
So tomorrow's the 31st of March, and there is a public meeting that's been hosted by Greypower. And we thank them very much for putting that on. It's to talk about the long-term plan. We've invited guests from the TCDC office to come and speak to each of the big 6 items, plus anything else that's raised through the discussion. So we're looking forward to that tomorrow, and it starts at 10:30, as I said. We've also got Dennis Teague coming with one of the directors of the WRC to talk about the transportation plan and the options there. There's 2 options, one through to Waihi and one through to Thames, that they'll discuss about that, come together, and there seems to be a bit of traction around that. And also about the housing sustainability loan. That's something that's going to offer some options for people to opt into a loan to put, I think, water tanks or something like that around their houses and things like that. So that's quite an interesting discussion. So that's on tomorrow at 10:30, and we hope that we get a good turnout and it's a successful event. What else? We opened yesterday the synthetic green at the bowling club. This is something the club's put together. It's the biggest investment since the club started, and we had the mayor and the MP there to officially open that. It's been quite a big project for fundraising, and Peter Burgess has really driven it. And it's quite a great asset for the town and for the future bowlers going forward. So I thought that was a great thing for the town again to step up. As the mayor said, Whangamata steps up all the time and makes it happen with its money. We've got the I think that's about it. Thank you.
Just a couple of things from me. I thought Beach Shop went very well once again. There were three community groups, the Menshed, Lions and Croquet Club joined forces to do a trial of motorhome parking over the beach shop down at Harbour View Reserve, and apparently that went very well, and understand those groups will be asking council if they can have a concession in future years, because there is obviously a demand for motorhome parking as more and more people get motorhomes, and the one at the school of Mayfair are full, so that's something that we'll probably need to consider later in the year. The other thing just to bring to your attention is in the Hauraki Herald, the DOC have asked for submissions to the proposal to have the boardwalk run along Esplanade Reserve. And the closing date for submissions is the 28th of April. And I think that the board should be expressing a view of support with our project, and we should be making that clear. So I'd like to, as part of the resolutions here, approve the lodging of submission to the DOC supporting installation of boardwalk along the reserve, and authorises the area manager in conjunction with the community board chair to make a submission. And we'll get the right wording for that submission, some advice from staff, but it is going to unfortunately delay the project even more, because if there are hearings that won't be till the 10th of May, and when they consider those, it might be the end of May before they make a decision, so the whole project once again drags on and on. We'd hoped to have started after the busy summer season, but that's not going to be the case, so it's all for me. Gary?
Yes, really just had a number of people contact me about 101 Lindsay. There's a lot of hot blood and disappointment around that, and I can tell you I've also been contacted by the lawyer for the survivors who's watching it and what is going to happen. So I hope the council just realise they have some legal obligations.
And I understand there's likely to be a lot of community input on that subject too. So.
Well, absolutely, and of course the thing that always never ceases to amaze me is once you sell something and you'll get rid of it, you never get it back again. And it's an ideal place for the hub. There's been a lot of time and effort and sweat put into that, and I just haven't come across anyone who thinks otherwise, then that's what it should be.
So had a few conversations with Val reportedly. So was there a reason that she couldn't speak today? Or, okay.
No, it's not, certainly not hush hush. I was feedback Daniel, so if you can elaborate a little bit. It's actually, I guess the best way I can explain it is they were invited to, they wanted to present their submission about freedom camping, and the rules are according to standing orders, and to make the process, the hearing process is fair, is that you can't get, and I've been told to use the term, a second bite of the apple. So it's two opportunities to kind of present your opinion when we're dealing with hearings. And I spoke to David, who was working closely with Val, and so if they presented here at the community board, it would affect their opportunity to present at the proper process, and that would be at council. So they've been invited to present at the council hearing. They received their invitation yesterday.
Okay. It was just my interpretation of the standing order rule was that it was just up to the chairperson's discretion.
We gave that, I went through my superior and we gave that advice, and then certainly I did follow up.
Yeah, and my ruling would be the appropriate avenue is to discuss it with the council, who are the decision makers. Right. It wouldn't add value coming to this community board here.
And want you to feel comfortable that I did have a good conversation with
Daniel.
Thank you, and felt very, very comfortable.
Okay, all right. 8 phone calls about the bus. So it does work putting our phone numbers in the paper. And so just also to follow up on the quarterly signage, where are we at with that?
Well, I haven't actually had a conversation, they haven't come back to me with what they want, how they want to do it, because it's a discussion that has to be held with regulatory, but from my understanding, a lot of those signs at Hosiery aren't actually council signs. We have only got the one sign.
Yeah.
So, it would be something that we need to have a discussion with was it Val and Daniel?
Yeah.
With the regulatory team about what all that other signage is and can we get it removed. I mean, some of those is dock signs saying that because it's actually dock land,
Yeah.
it's not our land. So it's also a discussion that needs to be had with dock.
Okay.
Can I just add a bit on here too? Pam's doing tsunami or emergency signs, $220,000 with them. Are they going to go out there as well?
I don't know, I haven't had those discussions.
Because it's interesting, all the signage gets very confusing for people. They just need to understand where they're going to put all that and how that's going to be presented to the public. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's just in our notes from, this is maybe a meeting before, we were going to have an outstanding action was a portrait signage workshop at the first workshop for the year, but we didn't have it then, so it's just, okay, that was on our action schedule. And then also an update on the social wellbeing strategy. Do we know how that's progressing? Yeah, do we know where it is now?
No, I sent all the information on to the policy planning team, but of course they've been so resourced up getting the LGP.
Yeah.
But I can follow that up with that team.
Okay. Are we able to add that to the action schedule? Just feel like something.
Yep.
I've also had a number of emails and also on Facebook about bus service. Everybody's supporting it. Nobody's negative in relation to that. I'd just like to thank Eileen for the assistance you gave for us with the parking that we put down. It was very good. Lions have appreciated what they got out of it, same as Men's Shed and the Croquet Club. So that went very, very well. A lot of positive on that, and a lot of people asking if they could be notified if we're doing it again next year because they wish to come here.
Can I just ask, how many vans did you actually have?
We had 60 that came in, and we were actually paid for several others that never turned up, but they prepaid, so it didn't matter to us from there. But it was, well marked out. We could have taken more vehicles, so it was great the way it was done. Yeah.
Boy, the town was busy, wasn't it?
Yeah. Onimano had their ratepayers meeting. I went to that. They were appreciative of the council reimbursing them for the money for the tennis court repairs that they've done, and said thank you for that. They're apparently anticipating that the next meeting, which is about a week or two away, will be in the surf club. Because it's ready from there, and I think you've got something.
Would like me to share with the group?
Yes, please.
This morning I got a message from my understanding the project lead for that project, Lori Stubbings, of course not through TCDC but through the Whangamata Surf Club. The news is that on Thursday they're meeting with TCDC representatives and they're expecting to go through the code of compliance milestone, and then they've got an opening which is happening this Sunday. They consider this their grand opening of about 60 to 70 people. You are all invited. It is open, it starts at 1 p.m. And Mr. Stubbing wanted me to explain that he likes casual wear and that it's beach wear very much accepted. He did ask me to say that. And he also added that this project was pretty much almost complete before Christmas. So they were essentially still using the services or the facility before now, but it will be all done and ready for everyone to see on Sunday. He hopes that some of you will be able to stop by.
And the public toilets all up and running?
I believe everything will be good and you can try them out if you want to on Sunday.
I think they were a bit disappointed about last Friday, Onimano, because they had all the beach hop cars go out there, but unfortunately it absolutely poured down.
Yeah.
A lot of people, about 10:30, just turned around and came back to town. So that was unfortunate because they were planning.
It just passed through really, didn't it? It was just a shower.
It was just a shower.
It was heavy.
Yeah. And finally, I understand that the MP Simpson is doing an impromptu meeting at 5 o'clock today at the War Memorial Hall. I just see on earlier this morning online here that apparently yesterday when he was at that function, somebody had asked him and he said that he was interested in public feedback, so he's organised a meeting for 5 o'clock tonight. So I don't know if you know anything about that.
They got directly through the girls' side.
I've seen it advertised.
Is it a political meeting? Just a.
No, it was only just email.
No.
It's just a
Chat with
his normal local, just let's chat with the constituents.
Well, the other thing I forgot to mention, I don't know if anyone else has, but I've had some contact regarding the tsunami sirens being changed. So I know there is some discussion with that going forward, but not everyone is happy with the move away from the sirens. So.
Yeah, well, we had this was raised yesterday at Taurupanui. Do you want to speak to this? Or?
I don't really want to speak to it. No, it's not in my area, but obviously there have been discussions. There's been stuff that's gone through the emergency management committee.
I thought Gary was here today.
Gary will speak at your workshop.
Oh, workshop, yes. Okay.
We can ask him.
So,
Sorry, one thing that I forgot. I had a number of people complain about the process and transparency of the beach hop raffle. Is that something that we need to ask for more, like considering we financially support
what raffle was that?
The prize draw for the vehicle, just that it's not supervised and.
The mayor drew the thing out. She drew the caravan out, but they go to the caravan and pick one out of the thing and come back.
It was the car. All the entry forms were in the car, and I can't see why they weren't transparent. Everyone could see you dive in and get out of it.
I don't know.
That's a beach hop organisation. It's nothing to do with council.
But it's always done out in the open.
Not says she's walking in the caravan, she's picking the thing out, bringing it out.
I avoided it. So.
No, if they have an issue, direct them to beach hop.
I'd avoid it.
Okay, well, thank you. Will someone move the members' reports? Oh, sorry, we've got a number 2 there, that lodge is sufficient for the dock, supporting the installation of boardwalk along the Western Reserve and authorise the area manager to make a submission in conjunction with the board chair. Okay. Seconded by Hanson. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. And the meeting is not closing at 12 AM, we'll close at 11:53 AM. Thank you, public, for your attention.
Did you want us to pass the members' report?
Yeah, that's all done, same.
It's all, it's.
No, we didn't. We just passed it.
We just passed it.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Part one was received some members' reports, and part 2 was so it was
done together.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to stop the recording just for a few minutes.
Keep quiet.
Recording.